Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the Mayor and Common Council, Borough of Flemington. We're doing a work session this evening, beginning at 7 p.m. Discussion is the marijuana legislation that was recently signed by the governor, and I do note that in the news there are a couple of changes to that legislation that's going to be happening. So Sally, now wanted to give council the opportunity to discuss this. So Sally, if you go ahead and call the roll.
Sure. Mayor Driver?
Here.
Ms. Giles McCormick?
Here.
Ms. Hand?
Here.
Mr. Johnston?
Here.
Mr. Long?
Here.
Mr. Runyon? I don't see him. Ms. Tilley?
Here.
Okay.
Excellent. So, as you know, the governor recently signed the recreational marijuana legislation that was approved by voter referendum throughout the state of New Jersey in the 2020 general election. Obviously, this is coming. It's going to be coming to the Flemington Borough, depending upon what council wants to do. There are a lot of options, and Dick Cushing is here, and I did learn over the weekend, actually, that Dick is involved with writing some model ordinances for municipalities. So I think it's with the league. Dick? Yeah, you're muted. You're muted, Dick.
Yes, actually, yes. The League of the Institute of Local Government Attorneys, in conjunction with the League of Municipalities, is working on form ordinances for municipalities to implement the new law. They've drafted one that's a no, saying no, this town does not want marijuana. They're still working on the yes, this town wants some or all marijuana facilities. So that's probably not going to be ready for another week or so, but as soon as that comes out, we'll circulate that.
Great. And I know Sally did send the negative ordinance around. For the life of me, I was looking at it earlier and now I can't find it anymore in my email. I should have saved it in a special spot and I neglected to do that. And then also back in January, Tara St. Angelo did circulate to me, which was then circulated to council under attorney-client privilege, a briefing paper on what we might be expecting with the marijuana legislation that would be coming up. I'm guessing for the most part, and Dick, correct me if I'm wrong, for the most part, most of what she has in here is still correct. Okay. And you're still, well, that's okay. We saw you nod. You're still muted. So
let me make a quick note that Chris has joined us, okay? Chris Runyon's here now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So anyways, I wanted to just, throw it out there for council discussion as to where people are thinking. There's the drug-free school zones, which could keep it 1,000 feet from a school. When we did the medical, I was mistaken. I was that it needed to be 1,000 feet from a church. That would be a local ordinance and not something that's in the state ordinance. Is that in state legislation, to the best of my knowledge? So that actually opens up a bunch of spots. Of course, we do have a middle school right in the middle of town, which kind of changes a whole lot of stuff. And we have the ball fields, which is borough owned, but I think that parks such as that is considered kind of schoolish. Richard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, in fairness, Mayor, the law is going through. So when they adopt the law, there's many variations of the law. And this one has all kinds of battles back and forth. So the final exact version is just being circulated now. So we're going to have to go through that with a fine-tooth comb just to make sure our preconceived notions are all correct.
Sure. And I will note that the public question number 1 about the marijuana question did pass by 71.8% in the borough. That means that, here's that question. 1,285 residents and Flemington Borough voters did vote to legalize marijuana. So that should hopefully inform some of your decisions and discussions. When we did the medical, as you may recall, we did it as a resolution and just in the highway retail zone. I don't know if we want to expand that to other areas if need be, but again, it has to be within. So Richard, if we did say the downtown business district, could we put in language then that says except for those areas of the downtown business district within 1,000 feet of the school?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to double check the new law, but yeah, I think so. That seems reasonable to be able to have a distance between schools and any marijuana shops.
Got it. And ultimately too, this would then go to the planning board. This would be a land use issue, making it a permitted use. Although I am curious about that because obviously we have drugstores that sell narcotics and those don't need a special land use cutout. It's a retail shop.
I think the idea, Mayor, is this, that the land use aspect of it is to allow municipalities to locate marijuana shops in areas where they find that, where the municipality finds it most suitable from a public standpoint. Mm-hmm. So you make an interesting point, but the drugs, of course, are prescription based. So there's a little difference there.
Got it. Okay, so anyways, I'm curious what council is thinking.
Are we allowed to limit the amount of marijuana shops in the borough?
Yes.
And when I read Tara's memo, the thing that strikes the urgency for me is that 180 days opt-out clause. Is that, so if we are choosing to put any restrictions on, or we have to do it in the first 80 days, 180 days, or is it if we just want to say no, not here at all within the first 180 days?
So the way it works is that if you don't opt out within the time period, mm-hmm. then marijuana facilities are permitted. So what the league has recommended, but I think it's different in Flemington's case, the league has sort of said, well, look, if you have any doubt about whether you're going to have this or not, just opt out because you can always opt back in. But if you don't opt out within the time period, then you can't opt back in. You can't opt out for another 5 years, and then whatever gets situated in the meantime has a right to stay, regardless of your subsequent decision on the thing. But I think what, Caitlin, my thought is, I know that Flemington has shown a lot of positive thoughts about making marijuana shops available in town. So I think really what I think are going to be the critical decisions are, what kind of facilities do you want? Do you want just retail distribution facilities? You want something else? And then the question is really, where's the best location for it? So I think the discussion that council might want to be thinking of is like, where would be good places to have a dispensary if you choose to, and how many?
My only point of concern was if we have to get all of those things settled within that 180-day period. That was my only concern.
I see.
I wanted to make sure, yes. So that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, I think what we thought is a sensible thing to do is because the league is working on a form ordinance, mm-hmm. we think it's economical from the borough standpoint to let them do the preliminary work. They've got a committee that is working on that. But to your point, though, the problem is you want to make sure that that draft ordinance gets out early enough so that you can take the nuances of that, apply it to Flemington, and get it in the spots that you want within the rules.
Okay.
So Dick, then can I ask you a question relative to that? And we had this discussion too, and maybe I was mistaken. Because when I read that, so if there was to do an opt out in order to buy time, can we then opt back in?
Yes.
You can. So it's not a 5-year ban on either. It's not a two-way.
Yeah. The law is written really basically to encourage municipalities to locate marijuana facilities. At least that's my interpretation.
Yeah. And if we were to fail to act within that 180 days, and it will be this council, obviously, there's not an election coming up within 180 days. Gets close though. It wouldn't allow medical marijuana. We could still restrict it based upon our land use and zoning, right? So we could still say that, no, you can't. We're only going to allow the dispensaries in this part of town.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not like we would be, faced with, somebody coming to the planning board and saying, I want to put a dispensary someplace we don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, as long as you opt in, then you're going to have the control. Or if you opt out, you obviously have negative control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but all right, so then now you've confused me, because I thought you said if you opt out, you can opt back in at a later time with whatever restrictions you want.
Correct. That's correct. What I'm saying is if you opt out, then you can come back in. If you don't opt out, then 5 years goes by before you can opt out, before you have the right to opt out again.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So does anybody have any thoughts on where they would rather have a facility?
I mean, I can think off the top of my head, obviously the highway retail district is ideal. The center of our main street, I'd have to look at a map. I'd have to pull up Google Earth and measure 1,000 feet from the school. Obviously the Stengel Road area. I know previously, I think it was Chris who brought up like where the coffee grounds place was at the corner of Mine and Central, but I think that's too close to the school.
Yeah, that's got to be too close.
Got to be within 1,000.
Because you've got Academy and that's it.
Yeah. So, and I have a zoning map up in front of me, obviously, so I am kind of looking at it. We've got that community business district.
Has anybody other than Betsy looked at it? I mean,
I've been thinking about it for a long time, Kim.
No, which is fine, but I'm just trying to see what everybody else has to say about it.
I mean,
go
ahead. Sorry, Kim.
No, you go, Jeremy. I'm talking now.
I haven't really given it a ton of thought myself, and I think Kim might share my concern is the quantity of these. If we want to pin that down, I don't know. I mean, my brain just says, do we need more than one of these things if it happens? And also location. I'm always partial to something that's kind of not like a little discreet and kind of tucked in. Top of my head, Turntable Junction came up just because there's little small stores there. I think there's some open rentals. Just off the top of my head, those are my initial knee-jerk kind of reactions.
And highway retail, are you favorable to that, or what do you think?
I'd like to hear more, I guess, before deciding on that one. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because if we're gonna say highway retail, I mean, don't forget the high school too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That would affect some of that.
So,
or maybe not, right? Down to maybe New York Ave. But then that's Raritan Township there anyway.
In the borough, it doesn't go that far up. Don't forget that just north of Church Street, 31 goes into the township.
Right.
It doesn't rejoin the borough except for a very small section up by the 7-Eleven.
What about by the village?
What's that, Malik?
The village area.
Are you talking Liberty Village?
Yeah, Liberty Village.
But is that I mean, that's private property too, though. So, I mean, if we say that's the only place they can have it and the owner's not willing to put one, then.
I think you have to be careful of spot zoning. You kind of have to look at zones
Mm-hmm.
and then exempt out certain areas like within 1,000 feet. And like Liberty Village, Stengel Road is the Village Artisan District. Yeah, and part of that though is within 1,000 feet, I believe, of the school as well as the park, Kirk-Morgan Park.
But I think like down by Lone Eagle is probably far enough away on the edge of Stengel towards Liberty Village is probably okay. And I think that could probably be okay there. I'm more the location. Well, when we had the discussion around medical, we did restrict it to highway and within. The way that one was written, Betsy, do you remember? It was
just highway retail.
It was just highway retail. So
highway retail, unless otherwise permitted, which would be like 1,000 feet to like the ball fields.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm convinced by by putting the number on the total. I remember when we had other shops pop up and it seemed like they were all over the place. That seemed like too much, but being able to put a cap, I'm receptive to. I'm okay with it on highway retail. And yeah, just a general discrete. I think the end of Stengel is probably fine too. I'm comfortable with that. But again, one, maybe two, I think is all we need, or more than we need. So.
Hey, Richard, do you know if they're going to issue licenses? How are they going to do that?
Well, they've got to create that Marijuana Regulatory Commission.
Yeah.
And if I am not mistaken, there's only a limited number of licenses that are going to be issued in the next 2 years. I think I read that it's limited to 37 licenses. So I don't think you're going to see immediate popping up of marijuana facilities because people are probably going to want to wait to find out what the regulations are that are promulgated by the commission. I assume businessmen would want to have those available before they start investing a lot of money. But there's a lot of demand for this. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on that commission to try to move it along as quickly as possible.
And since medical was previously legalized, is there any discrepancy between the two anymore? Like, do we need to say a total of, 1 or 2 medical dispensaries, whether they're medical or recreational, or like,
just in the medical law exists pretty much unchanged as far as I know, based on the new law. So those rights that exist for medical marijuana users are considered a little different category than recreational. So I think my view would be that the medical marijuana stays exactly as it is.
And this is additional.
And then what your question would be, would you permit recreational marijuana dispensary or whatever facilities that you think would be appropriate?
So what do people think would be appropriate? You've got, what are the 3 options? So you have a retailer, dispensary, manufacturing, and a grow operation. Now, I will say that there have been people that have approached me about citing a grow operation down towards Liberty Village, but on the areas that's considered wetlands. And basically I said, well, we don't know what the law is going to be, and P.S. there's wetlands. You better go talk to the DEP before you get too invested in that.
And I would imagine it needs a lot of water as well. Those protections.
It's going to need a lot of water. We could sell a lot of water though too. We could finance a new well probably with the amount of water we could sell to an operation, and that's the whole purpose of our water utility, is to sell water.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And then there's also, let's see, on this came from Sally from the, she forwarded from Mike Serra, New Jersey municipal elected officials, cannabis delivery license. I don't know. I guess there's 6 classes of licensing: cultivator, manufacturer, wholesaler, distributor, retail, and delivery.
Yeah, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No. So we would have to choose from these 6?
Yes.
What we would want to allow in the borough?
Yeah, I believe though on the delivery that I don't believe that a municipality can forbid the delivery of marijuana in town from an outside source if it's a licensed delivery person. In other words, you can't say, hey, we're not going to allow delivery in town.
Right.
Hey, Kim, what is the time and date of that email that she sent that she forwarded from the league? You have it in front of you? I cannot. I saw it earlier. Now I can't find it.
Hold on.
Is it the 2nd at March 2nd?
Yeah.
3:54.
3:54 p.m.
On what day?
March 2nd.
It's guidance.
Tuesday. Okay, thank you.
So what is the hard date that we need to make a decision on?
I have to double check that. It's 180 days. And I assume, so that's 6 months from the date the bill was signed, which was about 2 weeks ago. So we basically have about 6 months. Let me see if I can find that right as we're talking.
So July, August.
I mean,
August, yeah.
I do think opting out, given that 71% of our residents did. I mean, it's ultimately, a council vote, but 78% of our residents did vote for the legalization of marijuana.
Well, that's 78% of the people that voted. That's not 78% of the population, correct?
We can only count those who vote.
Right, but that's
what
not
the other people are thinking.
No. But it's 78% of the people that voted, not 78% of the population.
Yeah. It was something like 89% turnout, though, so I'd say it's a pretty high.
I thought you said the number was only like 1,700 or 1,800 that voted for it.
Yes, our turnout was 82.86%.
I've registered.
Could I ask a couple questions about the law?
Yeah.
Is it only, the law only allows the sale and growing, not the consumption of on a premises? So like a marijuana lounge or something? Like, is that where we want to?
I think that's correct. Yeah, I think only medical patients can smoke in public.
That's
I
correct.
think anyone can smoke in public.
Medical can.
On the street?
Yes.
But like these places couldn't have like a lounge where people could smoke there as like you go to a brewery and you have a beer,
right? Or a hookah place or something.
Yeah.
It doesn't. None of these say anything about consumption.
The bill indicates, as I recall, that you can consume it on private property. Whether that means, but the question is, you could probably, and this area is brand new, but my thought is that you could have a group of people as a social club that want to get together and smoke marijuana. However, if they had somebody who was going to sell it, then you'd have to be licensed as a dispensary. And I'm not sure a dispensary would actually have a consumption aspect to it. In other words, it would be like a liquor store versus a bar. And I think they allow the equivalent of a liquor store, but not the bar. But again, I've got to double check on that because the law is new.
Yeah, because I mean, if it was just the sale and distribution, I would say maybe more apt for the business district. But if it was also like, I look at it as the equivalent of going to a brewery and having a beer. I wouldn't see I have a problem with it like on Stangl Road or something if that were the case. The other thing I had a question is does the bill allow for the tax of a local tax?
2%.
2%, and is that optional to enact that tax, or is that?
Again, subject to me looking more carefully at the bill. My understanding is it's probably up to 2%, but any municipality would probably want to get the maximum revenue. There's also a 7% state tax.
I was just going to ask that. Now, does this allow for is the county going to come in and say, well, we want 3%? I mean, if the state's going to do it in a local.
I did not see that in the bill. I saw municipal and state, but nothing about the county. And I think the idea of the municipal is you've got enforcement issues, you've got other issues, and I think they wanted to get the support of the League of Municipalities for the bill.
Yeah.
I don't know. At 7:27, I think we need to have another work session on this.
Possibly.
Or a longer one.
And it just seems like there's things that are up in the air, and
too much
if we
unknown.
can get some certainty, if we can get another updated memo on some of these things.
We can do that, but may I make a recommendation? I know this isn't entirely satisfactory, but if we could wait like a month or so to do that, because everybody is out right now trying to get their arms around this bill. It's a very complicated bill. There's a lot of nuances to it. So there'll be more information coming forward about different aspects of the bill. So I agree with you. It's complex, but I think about a month would be appropriate for that. And hopefully by that time, we'll have the draft ordinance. And we need that fairly quickly, because if you're going to adopt land use regulations in connection with it, you're going to need some time to work that through the planning board and through your own views on it.
Okay, so we'll revisit in about a month. The whole purpose was to get that conversation started and get folks thinking about it, so that nobody's surprised when the ordinance shows up. Either way. Okay, good enough. So we'll end the work session and move right into the regular council meeting. Sally, we're still recording. Excellent. This is the March 8th, 2021 regular meeting of the Mayor and Common Council, Borough of Flemington. This meeting is being held in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. It's being held online only during the COVID-19 emergency. The Zoom link for this is posted at Borough Hall, as well as published in conjunction with the agenda on the Borough website and all the usual places that Sally sends it out to. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sally, if you'd call the roll.
Mayor Driver?
Here.
Ms. Giles McCormick?
What happened to Caitlin? Oh, there she is.
She's here.
Here.
Ms. Hand?
Here.
Mr. Johnston?
Here.
Mr. Long?
Here.
Mr. Runyon?
Here.
Ms. Tilley?
Here.
All right, we're all here.
Excellent. We will start with an OEM report from Corporal Brian McNally, our OEM coordinator. And this may be Brian's last thing. We may drop this down to maybe just once a month or quarterly, just as there's becoming less things for him to discuss.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's at the end of this week, the Office of Emergency Management will now be operational for 52 weeks, and complete 1 year. March 5th or March 4th of last year, New Jersey announced his first confirmed case of COVID, and 5 days later, our borough officials here instituted emergency plans, and we began to protect employees and our residents by beginning to take additional protective measures borough-wide. We began to prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and the coming months brought on mad dashes for our office, trying to acquire PPE, proper disinfecting equipment, and how to make sure that our staff remained operational through a pandemic. We continued to monitor what seemed like daily changes to our executive orders and ensuring our residents and employees were protected while still being able to safely navigate to our essential businesses. In the last 12 months, we saw measures in place that were only thought of in movies. So I want to take the time to thank all of our residents and our council and our employees for making sure that we all stayed safe during that time. We saw stay-at-home orders, closing of our schools, mandatory masks indoors and outdoors. We had a social distance from our friends and loved ones. But everybody did it. Everybody did their part, and we're getting closer. We're getting closer to the light to the end of that tunnel. You know, during the last year, we developed comprehensive reopening plans for the borough, for all of our borough buildings, our departments, and we've essentially created a pandemic response plan for the future. So, you know, towards the end of this, we'll do what we call a hot wash at the end and put everything together and hopefully have a nice plan that, God forbid, we ever have a pandemic again. There was no book, but hopefully we have one now. But the most promising news is, you know, we do have a vaccine, and it's slowly being able to be distributed over the last few months. You know, by no means are we out of the woods yet, but every day we take another step in the right direction. Hopefully in another few weeks and months, we'll see greater increases in capacity limits. That's going to allow us to gather again. And, you know, that new vaccine distribution sites are scheduling daily, and the doses of the vaccines are slowly rolling into the state. Today, the governor announced that, you know, they do believe that we should have ample supply here by the end of April. But thank you to all of you that have been with me through this over the last year. You know, and to Mayor Drywood for, you know, your daily assistance in our operations. So it's been a ride. We're still on it, and we'll be here with you through the rest of it. But, you know, going over, you know, daily numbers, which are available to the public, I don't know if they're necessary, you know, every other week, but we should be able to, you know, keep something up, you know, bi-monthly or at least quarterly for you. But we'll turn to those numbers. So our Flemington Borough positives for 1 year, 377 confirmed cases here in the borough of Flemington. And we did in the last year have lost 3 borough residents due to COVID-19. We've currently in the county of Hunterdon vaccinated 34,637 people to date. And we're currently able to vaccine our unpaid healthcare workers, our residents and staffs of these long-term care facilities, all of our first responders, individuals 65 years of age or with certain medical conditions. And then last week we began our pre-K to 12 educators and staff, which began immediately. So congratulations to all of our teachers out there that we can get you vaccinated and get you back into schools. And then beginning March 15th, transportation workers and additional public safety workers will be eligible for vaccine, and we should see a new group announced at the end of March. So sorry to be a little long-winded, but I just wanted to give a brief recap of our last year. So does anybody have any questions for me? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your continued.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We wouldn't have been able to get through this as smoothly as what we had if it wasn't for you, Brian. So
thank you.
Yeah, I have remarked to many folks that when this started a year ago, and I remember our first phone call about it, and I think calling you up and go, hey, there's this stuff happening in the news. We better prepare, it's coming. And had a call with the governor about a week before. It was right before he went in for his kidney surgery. And yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I thank you for all your hard work. We got to know each other, I think, much more than we ever expected to get to know each other over the past year. And that's, so I do appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so we start with the mayor's comments, and I have them here on my phone. I just want to recap very briefly. We did have a public work session this evening starting at 7 o'clock. Discussion was the cannabis legislation. It's going to be coming, and council needs to start thinking about how they want to address it. There are some deadlines that they need to be mindful of. So the discussion tonight was not to take action on anything, but simply to get that discussion going and get the members of council really thinking about it. And hopefully that'll happen. We'll revisit it again in about a month once we see more. The legislation needs to be kind of fine-tuned as to how it's going to be sold and licenses and all that. So we'll be waiting for that, and then we'll revisit that conversation. And last week, the budget workshops wrapped up. I do expect that we'll be ready for the budget introduction at the next meeting. Bill was going to be sending it to the auditors. And so hopefully at the next meeting, we'll introduce it. And then a month after that, we have a public hearing. It was a hard budget. We're kind of trying to predict a lot of stuff. We have this garbage stuff coming up that we don't know how much it's going to cost us. And so there's a whole lot of crystal ball faith that has gone into the budget this year. And hopefully we read that crystal ball correctly, particularly in regards to the garbage and what those bills will be with the new contract. Speaking of garbage, I was supposed to go up to Washington Borough to look at their pickup garbage pickup operation last week. I was going to be going with the Public Works Director, Mike Campion. That was postponed due to some unforeseen circumstances, and I think we're hoping to go on Wednesday of this week. There was last week a Hunterdon County's mayor's Zoom meeting with the governor's office. It was 2 weeks ago, on Thursday. Mayor's Zoom meeting with the governor's office, the county, Hunterdon Medical Center representatives were there to discuss the status of the vaccine rollout. The rollout, as we all know from news reports, is being held back by vaccine availability. However, it's hopeful that the first J&J vaccines are out there in the wild and in the supply chain, that those numbers will increase and that those numbers will get to the point where we can get a lot more people vaccinated. I have spoken with many residents about their difficulties in scheduling a vaccine appointment. I understand it. I have some health issues myself, and I've been dealing with that same Hunger Games feeling every day. And I get it. We've also discussed with more than one resident, and I've discussed with the OEM, how we're going to get our seniors who live at the Herman Cap apartments vaccinated. There is a call later this week with county representatives and the hospital for mayors and elected officials, and I will be bringing that up as well, as to how we can, get our seniors, particularly since everything's being done online and how difficult it is. Thankfully, I think the state recently opened up a phone number too that people can call. Sally, I should send you that stuff for posting on the borough website.
Yeah.
I just saw it today, late this afternoon. So, Council President Caitlin Giles McCormick and I had a meeting with representatives of the EDA and the governor's office to bring them up to date on various development projects in the borough and the status of those, and also to learn about different incentive programs they offer in terms of grants and tax benefits to developers. The governor did sign a comprehensive economic recovery legislation a month or two ago, and there's historic preservation grants in there, cleanup money for contaminated sites. And so there's a lot that the state's going to be offering for developers coming in to redevelop underutilized property within the town. And I'm very careful when I use that underutilized property, because we do have quite a bit in town that is sitting empty or sitting not being used to its potential outside of the, particularly outside of the downtown business district. 144 Main Street, the Heinlein Station notwithstanding, where I'd like to see some development and growth take place, which, obviously the purpose of that is also, if we get more feet on the ground, we get more stuff in town, and other people want to come in and open up good restaurants and other things for people to do, but they need the customers, and the only way to get the customers is to add some housing for them in areas that could use it. And that is all I have. We'll go on to Caitlin Giles McCormick for the council report.
Sure. The Samuel Fleming House Museum and Gardens continues to meet on a monthly basis, their board, to continue to prepare hopefully for a May event, if everything is safe and good to go at that point, along with some virtual events that they are planning. So that is, they're continuing to meet and make those plans as they can. The wreaths on Main Street are coming down, if they have, tomorrow. That is something that the Flemington Community Partnership actually initiated this year, kind of in conjunction with beautification and the snowflakes and things like that. Those are coming down, so we can say goodbye to those, but hopefully see them again in the next couple of years as well. They are something that can be used multiple years in a row. Additionally, with the Flemington Community Partnership, give me 2 seconds, I don't have it in front of me. It is Restaurant Week. There are dine-in cards for local restaurants that you can pick up at the Stangel Farmers Market, which is every Saturday. You can also, if you get a certain number of stamps, you can be entered to win a $100 gift certificate for restaurants around town. So it's a nice little promo and way to have some fun and maybe taste some new restaurants around town. The last FCP actually launched a sign grant program, and that is continuing it was established under the previous executive director, but it is continuing. There have already been 6 applicants to that, and this is a program the FCP provides grants for in order for businesses to have better signage. So you want something that's eye-catching, you want something that draws people in and is accurate and descriptive of your business. So that seems to be going very well as well. To kind of switch over to the opportunity zone stuff, we have had a lot of press recently, specifically around the opportunity zone, but also designation and the potential new development and redevelopment and revitalization of the borough. And the FCP has really been instrumental in promoting that and getting that publicity as well. And we are, with the Opportunity Zone grant that we are currently working through, our consultants, Stantec, are actively working on their final report, and we will have a public presentation towards the end of March, maybe drifting into April, but that's going very, very well. And I just want to again thank everybody who contributed their thoughts and discussion to what they want the future of Flemington to be. The EDA, as the mayor mentioned, we did meet with them to talk about many upcoming projects and all the possibilities here in Flemington as well. They also do have they're promoting a PPP program that's discounted for micro businesses and nonprofits and things like that. So I would encourage anybody locally that has a small local business to check them out if you're having any trouble getting PPP equipment. And that's all I got.
Moving on to Councilwoman Jessica Hand.
Thank you, Mayor. The community garden public hearing is going to be at the next meeting, March 22nd at 7:30 p.m. The community garden planning committee is continuing to work on preparation for the garden. This Thursday, along with Councilman Long and Councilman Johnston, we have our second citizens group meeting where we'll be preparing to get those citizens groups started that we talked about last time. And that is all I have.
Next up, we'll go to Councilman Malik Johnston.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you. I have nothing new to report this month. Thank you.
Moving on to Councilman Jeremy Long.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Quick report tonight. Planning Board at the February 23rd meeting, the Planning Board reviewed and passed the amended Stormwater Management Ordinance on tonight's agenda. An application for Premier Outdoor Media hearing for completeness. Additionally, what ended up being part one of the public hearing of the Flemington Center Urban Renewal Project, otherwise known as Courthouse Square, took place at last meeting. And this hearing continues into tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Another public hearing for 91 Main Street is to continue as well from the February 23rd meeting. Nothing to report on police this evening. And just to reiterate what fellow council member Hand had said, we're having our meeting tomorrow night. You know, eventually we're going to be casting a wider net out. And if you are interested anyway, just contact either myself, council members Hand or Johnston. And again, these meetings are meant to make connections across the borough. We hope to engage with a range of perspectives and experiences in order to connect, learn, grow, and evolve as a community. And that's it for me tonight.
Thank you, Councilman. Next up is Councilman Christopher Runyon.
Environmental Commission is going to be meeting a week from today. We're going to be looking at Sustainable Jersey action items and putting together a priority list for this year. And Mayor, you sent me, I think, an email today about the Raritan Headwaters stream cleanup. So I'm going to look into that and see if we can get involved with that this year. Because I think the last time the borough did that was our election year a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was canceled last year.
Yeah, so it'd be nice if we could do that again. I'm sure there's plenty of trash over there at this point. Be picked up.
I love that event. I love putting on my boots and splashing in the cold water.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next up is Councilwoman Kim Tilley.
Short list for me too. Fire officers meeting and a couple of budget meetings, and that was it. The bottom half of the calendar is always busier for me. So.
Okay, good enough. That brings us to our first public comment session. You get up to 3 minutes each. We do spend a maximum of 30 minutes. Everybody gets one opportunity to speak their 3 minutes. If you're on the phone, you can raise your hand with *9. And then when we call on you, it's *6 to unmute. And Sally, did we receive any emails? Okay. So if you are in the public and have a comment, you can click on the raise hand icon. Depending upon your operating system, it's either at the bottom or top of your screen. Seeing no comments, we will move on to approval of the minutes. If we could have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 22nd, 2021 regular council meeting.
Giles McCormick will move.
Handle second. Oh, I got it.
Ms. Giles McCormick?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Yes.
Ms. Tilley?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That takes us up to the consent agenda. There are 2 items on there, reaffirming the Green Team and a resolution recognizing the accomplishment and potential of women on this International Women's Day and during Women's History Month. If we could have a motion to move those 2 items.
Billy will move.
Giles McCormick will second. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to just have a voice vote on this one?
We can do a voice vote on it.
Sure.
All right.
Got it.
All in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed say nay. It passes. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to our regular agenda. First up is Resolution 2021-69, marking the first anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic. Could I have a motion?
Giles McCormick will move.
I will second.
I just want to make a couple of comments. As Brian mentioned, we did lose 3 residents. It's been a wild year, and I wanted to just make note of it, that it has been an interesting year. And I said a lot of what I was going to say to Brian earlier, so there's no reason to repeat it. The resolution after passage does call for a moment of silence. Any comments? Sally, call the vote.
Mayor, Ms. Giles McCormick,
Yes.
Ms. Hand,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Bunyan,
Yes.
Ms. Tilly.
Yes.
And with that, if we could please have a moment of silence just to remember the 3 residents of Flemington and the thousands upon thousands of other people who have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past year. Thank you. That brings us to our first ordinance. It is a public hearing, Ordinance 2021-4. This is second reading, amending and supplementing bond ordinance 2020-18, which was adopted on December 14, 2020 to increase the appropriation thereof by $83,758 and increase the borrowing of that by $79,598. This was due to a math error on that original bonding. If we could have a motion to open the public hearing, we can do that by voice vote.
Giles McCormick will move.
And I'll second.
Are
All
there
in
any
favor of
public
opening
comments?
the hearing, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the hearing is now open.
Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this bonding ordinance? Calling on Mr. Chuck Pettibone. Please make sure you state your full name and address for the record. Chuck, you need to unmute yourself.
Did you get my name? Nothing.
I did.
Okay, so
But
question.
you need to state your name and address for the record.
Okay, didn't get that. Didn't get that. My apologies.
That's okay.
It's been a long year.
We still didn't get your name and address.
Charles Pettibone. Would you like me to spell it?
No.
No, we just need your address.
3.5 Lloyd Avenue.
Excellent.
So
Do you have a comment on the bond ordinance?
not a comment so much as could you expand upon the error or the issue of the monies?
Yeah, there was a miscalculation by the bond attorney when we adopted it back in December, and they needed to just add more money in because the work that's necessary was costing more. The estimate was fine from the engineer, but when the bond attorney put it in and sent it in, there was a mistake in it.
So are there repercussions for, is this something that happens often?
No, it doesn't happen often at all, although we do have another one this evening, which we're going to have to table, but that's
Okay.
a different item.
Is there still a second public comment time?
There is.
Okay, then I'll I'll wait till that moment because I want to follow up on this then.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks.
great.
Are there any other public comments? We could have a motion to close the public hearing.
Handle move.
Tilly will second.
Have a voice vote on closing the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
No, I just want to mention that Malik and Chris are both muted, so I don't know if they need to unmute for that.
Me.
Okay,
Thank you, Kim.
thank you. So everyone's in favor of closing the public hearing, so the public hearing is now closed.
We could have a motion to adopt.
Giles McCormick will move.
Tilly will second.
Thank you. Is there any council comment? Sally, call the vote.
Giles McCormick? Caitlin, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes. Thank you.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Yes.
Ms. Tilly?
Yes.
Okay, that's approved.
Excellent, thank you. Next up on the agenda is Ordinance 2021-5. This is also a second reading. This is the ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 21 of the Code of the Borough of Flemington, Stormwater Control. This reflects amendments to the New Jersey Stormwater Management that were adopted March 2nd, 2020. If we could have a motion to open the public hearing.
Handle move.
Giles McCormick will second.
All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. All right, the public hearing is now open.
Are there any comments from the public on the stormwater management rules which we are adopting this evening? Seeing none, if we could have a motion to close the public hearing.
Tilly will move.
Handle second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay.
Malik, you need to
Aye.
unmute.
Excuse me, I was coughing. Nay. What am I saying? Aye.
All right. Looks like everyone's in favor of closing the public hearing, so the public hearing is now closed.
Okay, if we could have a motion to move.
Giles McCormick will move.
2021-5. Motion to adopt.
Tilly will second.
Is there any council comments?
Kind of have to do this.
Sally, call or vote.
All right, Ms. Giles McCormick,
Yes.
Ms. Hand. Geez, just froze.
Oh,
He froze.
you're a little
She's
tap.
just really surprised.
I'll move on to ask Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Runyon,
Yes.
Ms. Tilly,
Yes.
Jessica, are you back on now? Can you unmute yourself?
I'm sorry, my internet is very unstable. I don't know if you guys can hear me at all, but
We can hear you now.
okay. I'm sorry.
So do you vote yes or no?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, I got kicked off my internet. I don't know. But yes.
Okay. You can keep, if you keep your camera off, you'll use less bandwidth if your internet's being wonky.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
All right, ordinance 5 is approved or adopted.
Ordinance 2021-6 is the first reading. This is a bond ordinance providing for the sewer utility improvements in the Borough of Flemington, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey. This is a first reading, obviously. It's appropriating $827,499, authorizing the issuance of $827,499 in bonds or notes to finance the cost thereof. If we could have a motion.
Tilly will move.
Chalice McCormick will second.
Basically, this is the sewer for the for the Main Street. I'm just bringing it up.
It's
basically
Dewey,
not
Corcoran.
Main Street, no sewer on Main Street, but Hopewell, Dewey,
and Corcoran.
Yes. If we could have Sally, if you could call the vote.
Yeah. Ms. Giles McCormick?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Yes.
Ms. Tilly?
Yes.
Okay, that's been introduced, and the public hearing will be at the March 22nd council meeting.
We don't, okay, we can do 2 weeks on that. Okay.
Yep.
Next up is ordinance 2021-7, first reading, bond ordinance providing for water utility improvements by and in the Borough of Flemington. This is $1.472 millions, issuing $1,402,381 in bonds to finance the cost thereof. This is for all the previously named streets plus Main Street between Church and the Circle. I'm actually going to ask somebody to table this for this week. There's an error in it regarding one of the streets. They have Shields Avenue intersecting with mine. There's also 2 streets on here that are not in the borough, which we have to do as part of our water tower planning board approval. And that street also does not intersect with Main Street. So I'm not quite sure. They just have a couple streets wrong. So I'd like to table it so I can go back to the bond attorney and tell him he has to fix it on his dime.
Tilly will table it.
Giles McCormick will second.
Long with her.
We will introduce it. I'm glad I caught it before the meeting this evening. I was going through and reading everything. One final read and went, wait a second, Shields Avenue doesn't intersect with Main Street.
Let me call the vote on the tabling, okay? Ms. Giles McCormick?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Yes.
Ms. Tilly?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you. And we'll introduce it at the next meeting with the correct street in there. Next up is ordinance 2021-8. This is also a first reading. This is effectuating and regulating expanded outdoor dining in compliance with Chapter 15 Senate Bill 3340. If we could have a motion.
Long will move.
Handle second.
Basically, the headline on this supplements our outdoor dining ordinance that we previously adopted last year. And it adds the consumption of alcohol in conformance with the recent legislation signed by the governor as part of the COVID-19 recovery stuff. This part does have an expiration on it because it's ultimately controlled by ABC. If we could have a vote.
Ms. Giles McCormick?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Yes.
Ms. Tilly?
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing for this will be on March 22nd as well.
Excellent, thank you. Next up is resolution 2021-70, waiving the outdoor dining permit fee for the remainder of the year 2021. If we could have a motion.
Giles McCormick will move.
Long second.
So basically this is just redoing the waiving of the fee. As you recall, we did this last year. The ordinance does have a permit fee involved, but because of the COVID-19 recovery, it's always a good idea to waive these fees whenever possible. Is there any council comment? Sally, call the vote.
Ms. Giles McCormick?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Yes.
Ms. Tilly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's adopted.
Excellent, thank you. Next up is resolution 2021-71, authorizing townwide yard sales to be held the first weekend in May 1 and May 2, and October 2nd and October 3rd, 2021. It does have rain dates built in. If we could have a motion.
Tilly will move.
Giles McCormick will second.
There are rain dates the following week. Yes, I know the following week on the May 1 is Mother's Day weekend, but maybe your moms want to go garage sale shopping for Mother's Day, should there be rain. And so is there any other comment from council? Sally, go ahead and call the vote.
Ms. Giles McCormick?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Yes.
Ms. Tilly?
Yes.
That passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is resolution 2021-72. This is expressing opposition to Assembly Bill 1571, 1576, and the companion bill, Senate Bill S 1956, which would impose prevailing wage requirements on certain redevelopment projects. If we could have a motion.
Tilly will move.
Almost second.
So what this is there's a bill making its way through the assembly that if a project gets a pilot money, it imposes the requirement for prevailing wage requirements. On the surface, I kind of agree with this, but unfortunately it loses local control. And that local control is our ability to negotiate on pilot agreements to get the best deal possible for Flemington. And some of the things we negotiate on these pilot agreements are, infrastructure upgrades. We have one that we're negotiating currently right now, which has community benefit in it, real community benefit in it. And we don't want to lose that ability to do that. That said, we're also putting in, and council can put in a project labor agreement, asking that, in exchange for the pilot that developer has to use or pay prevailing wages. That's not something I'm opposed to doing. However, we need to have it under local control rather than state control. The other issue is if there's state control, it could really do a number on our ability to meet affordable housing requirements as put forth by our affordable housing settlement. And that's a problem. And that could cause all sorts of havoc down the road as well. So at first I was kind of in support of this. After talking to other mayors and after thinking it through, I did realize this is a really bad thing for local municipalities. And so I'm asking council to consider adopting this resolution to oppose this particular bill so that we can have local control over these kind of discussions with developers. Are there any other council comments or questions?
So just to clarify about the
introduce
pilot. Oh.
Did we? I'm sorry, we didn't introduce. Sorry, Caitlin.
No.
Yeah, we did.
Kim moved it and Jeremy seconded it.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
So
I do it all the time.
So real quick, the pilot is, I just want to clarify that this would hurt local control over negotiations for getting money for schools. If somebody was putting in a big residential project, negotiating any money towards a project for the town because of the pilot, like this would restrict us locally by putting in
the potential.
Okay.
It takes something without outside of our control in terms of a bargaining point. That all of it needs to be prevailing wage versus maybe prioritizing certain sectors or certain types of workers, and having that ability to compromise, which I am also kind of torn about, but I think because of the demands that the state typically puts on municipalities, we kind of need every every piece that we can keep. I think we should keep. And this is, well, I think all of us are very much, or many of us understand the importance of living wage and prevailing wage, and that this is something we should keep within our control, and understand that we have the nuance for our local needs and developments. So.
Thanks.
Are
Yeah.
there any other comments or questions? Sally, go ahead and call the vote.
Ms. Giles McCormick?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Abstain.
Ms. Tilly?
Yes.
Okay, that passes.
Next up is resolution 2021-73. It's amending and restating resolution number 2021-48, allowing me to sign the infrastructure, the iBank stuff for the water tower. They had to make some minor changes to the contract, and so I just need permission to sign it again from council.
Giles McCormick will move.
Khalil second.
Any discussion?
It's written in a way that's much more complicated.
It's a lot of words to say. Go and sign the note, please. So Sally, if you call the vote.
Ms. Giles McCormick?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Yes.
Sorry, Chris. Yes? Okay. Ms. Tilly?
Yes.
Okay, that's approved.
That brings us to our second public comment session. Again, it's up to 3 minutes each, maximum of 30 minutes. If you would like, you are a member of the public and would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. Click by clicking on the raise hand icon or hitting *6 or *9 on your telephone if you are calling it.
I think we were expecting a comment from Charles.
Yeah, he's got his hand up.
I have
two
the
hands up.
director of, to the email, Director of Flemington Community Partnership. Please identify yourself and where you're calling from. And you need to unmute.
How's that?
Good.
Great. Robin Lapidus, the the FCP Executive Director. I just wanted to correct our dear liaison.
Bring it.
Yes, who just said what I'm sure is on most people's lips, that it's Restaurant Week, when in fact it is Restaurant Month.
Yes.
And
I said month in my head. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Your time.
So, many municipalities that have, and bids and towns that have restaurant weeks are celebrating Restaurant Month. because it's really challenging for our restaurants to try to do discounted menus, and they're just very limited in terms of capacity for many, many reasons. So we are celebrating our restaurants all month. And I just wanted to tell you that you have until the end of March to turn in your dining card, and you can pick them up at Stangl Factory and in the restaurants themselves. So whether you're taking out or just grabbing a slice of pizza or getting a cup of coffee, you can get one. And we really hope to see great support for the restaurants this month. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Next up is Chuck Pettibone.
Charles Pettibone, 3.5 Lloyd Avenue.
Thank you.
So remember the budget presentation that the public work people were giving? And I found it kind of, I don't know, to me, I didn't feel like answers were being given a lot of times. So, so one question I have is, when's the last time we do an audit of those folks?
Audits are done every year.
Right, okay. So then that's when you can signal any problems. And obviously, has it been done for this year?
No, Bill, when's it done? It's like usually in June.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's done at the end of the year. So they're in the process of doing the 2020 audit now. Okay.
So, for example, you remember, Mayor, you asked about a $37,000 expense or over, I forget exactly what it was, but you didn't get an answer. So I guess we'll get an answer when the audit's done.
I don't remember, in all honesty, what it was. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers from the DPW. Sometimes it's just going through and looking at numbers. I don't remember the 37,000, but
it was your question. Yeah, it was your.
Sure it was. I just don't remember what it was.
Yeah. And so, okay. So is that available to the public, the audit?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I think the other thing that I might bring up is I can email you that a question I have to. Would that be okay? The mayor?
Yeah. The 37,000, what is that what you're asking?
Wait, repeat that. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, no, you can email me anytime. Absolutely.
Okay, because I don't want to take up time with this. It has something to do with COVID and stuff like that. So, yeah, have a good evening and stay safe.
Thanks.
Lower here.
Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll move on to the attorney's report.
Mayor, the only comment that I have is in response to Chris Runyon's question about whether there can be facilities or areas for consumption of marijuana. And I re-looked at the law, well, when the meeting was going on. And in fact, there is a provision for cannabis consumption areas related to licensed premises, presumably retail type of facilities. That was permitted, as I understand it, under the medical marijuana law. And the way I read the law, it seems to be a permitted type of use or that type of operation could be allowed in connection with distribution license. So it was a good question, Chris, and we'll take a more close look at it. But I did want to follow up on you and correct what I said.
Thanks.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Excellent. Do a motion to pay the bills?
Can I have a follow-up question to Dick on that, or no?
Yeah.
Is it, because you mentioned retail license and distribution license, are they two different licenses?
Yes.
So is it for both? So then the consumption is allowed on both of those licenses, or just retail?
Just retail, my understanding.
Just retail.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'll move to pay the bills.
Handle second.
Any council comment? Sally, call the vote.
Ms. Giles McCormick?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Runyon?
Yes.
Ms. Tilly?
Yes.
The bills are going to be paid.
Excellent. Is there a reason to go into executive session?
I have no reason, Mayor.
And I have none too.
I don't have any.
Okay, anyone else?
Nope.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Hold a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. We are adjourned.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay safe.
Night.
Have a good night.